What is up, YouTube, Facebook, everyone? Of course, this is Chet Guthrie here, the Dream Poet. This is my fascinating people and extraordinary stories. This month, as you all know, I have been covering the rise of the vloggers, as I should say. Basically, vloggers telling their entire stories, their history, and where they are now and where they sit. I do apologize. I've been getting over the crud here lately, but this gentleman I'm about to introduce he is a very well-known YouTuber, especially from the New Orleans area. He has worked with other well-known YouTubers such as Jacob the Carpetbagger or Adam the Woo. Everyone, I want you all to meet NOLADEEJ. How you doing, Deej?
How's it going, everybody? Hey, man. How are you?
Oh, like I said, still getting over this crud.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, man. That goes around
Feel
so
like death.
fast.
Yeah, still getting over it. Yeah. But anyway, Deej, I'm glad you could come on tonight. Anyway,
Yeah.
could you explain to us a little bit about what you do, where you're from, and I guess your backstory and how you're here now?
All right. Well, I'm from New Orleans. That's what the NOLA indicates. I started doing the YouTube thing about I think December of 2016, and I started it because as a lot of people that are fans of Adam the Woo and Jacob the Carpetbagger, uh, they were inspired by those guys. So I too was inspired by Adam and Jacob, and I wanted to do something along the lines of what they were doing, with more of a focus in New Orleans. And because I said, New Orleans has a lot of cool stuff like that that can be shown, as opposed to traveling around the country, which I'm not able to do. Like those guys are. So I said, well, let me focus it all here in New Orleans and showcase that stuff. And so any like attractions and events, festivals, and places like that, I wanted to show that. So my videos were that for the longest time, and I'd say a couple of years ago, and occasionally I would do an abandoned place, which is one of my favorite things to do. So a couple of years ago, I really kind of shifted my focus more to doing abandoned stuff, and that has now become my primary thing that I do now on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all. I post it everywhere. So I've evolved, I guess you can say, over the years, as that is my primary focus. But occasionally I'll still throw out a little New Orleans specific item here and there, some history or whatever. I love history. And so, the abandoned places fall into that category. But in fact, that picture you're showing right there is that is of the Times-Picayune newspaper plant that was torn down not long after we explored that place. And the Times-Picayune was or still is the New Orleans main newspaper. I think they call it the Advocate now. But
Really?
that building, it was there for a long time, and it was iconic because it was right on the interstate, and it had this clock tower. So every time you drive down the interstate to or from New Orleans, you would see that place. So it was cool to get to explore the inside of that. And unfortunately, it's gone now. But yeah, it's a Times-Picayune building. One of my favorite places that I've gotten to see.
I mean, I'll tell you, you're in a perfect prime spot. New Orleans, I did my series back in March. And actually, of all things, that trip was I was able to finally monetize my channel.
Oh, nice.
But, which is always exciting. I know prior to this, us going live, we were kind of talking about the Flooded House Museum. You want to kind of tell everyone about your tie to that? I just find that interesting.
So yeah, a guy on Facebook contacted me um, just before it was really starting to get put together, and he said, "Hey man, I'm a local artist. Me and this other guy, we're setting up this flooded house museum, and wanted to know if you wanted to come and check it out, come and film us actually putting it together, and then when we're done, film the end result of it. And I said, yeah, absolutely, that would be really cool. So I did that, and I went there a few times while he was working on it, and so I became friends with him, and and we're still friends to this day. He does a lot of like cool artwork and stuff. His name is Aaron Angelo. You can find him on Facebook. But yeah, he was a really cool guy to hit me up to come check that place out and to get to watch them stage it to make it look like Katrina had just hit it. And that particular house, Katrina did hit it, except they had to like remove everything because what they put in there, obviously it can't just be this moldy stuff for everybody to see, because it's, if it's real mold, it would not be good. So they made it look like mold, and they made it look like it had been flooded and then brought down, the water back down. And my particular video, I got to see the before of it. So they staged everything as if the house was being lived in, and then they took that down and staged it as if the hurricane came, it flooded, and then the waters receded. So all the stuff that was in the house, like a piano, bookcase with some pictures, and there was a newspaper in there of a couple of days before the hurricane. All that, they made it look like the water had come in there and shifted everything around, and then came down. And so if you go to the museum, you can look into the windows and you see the water line as where the water level was. It's pretty cool. And then to the side of that house where there used to be a house, Katrina wiped that house off its foundation. There's now a walkable, I don't know what you call it, a walkable museum where they've got
Garden.
pictures. Yeah, like a garden or whatever. And they've got pictures of, the before and the after of the storm, and, certain, things like what happened during the storm. And where that spot is at the levee that broke and let the water come in and flooded that whole area. So it's a pretty interesting spot, to say the least.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, because, of course, I went there too back. By the way, you guys, in the links below, I'll put, if you all are curious to see what the museum looks like, it's a very fascinating monument. Deej, did you live in New Orleans when Katrina was happening, or?
Yeah, I've lived in New Orleans all my life. I was here when Katrina hit, and thankfully, where I lived uh, at the time, we weren't affected as much as other people were. I live in a city that's just outside of New Orleans. I don't live directly in New Orleans. So we were lucky, but man, a lot of people that I know, like so many people that I know personally, were not lucky at all. They lost everything. So it's a weird dynamic, and you have that survivor's guilt, like we didn't go through, like we all went, everybody locally that lives here, we all went through the storm, and it affected us all in different ways. But seeing people that I work with and seeing family members and friends that that have gone through it a completely different way and much worse than me, it's weird to see that even today. It's been, since 2005, but even today, um, looking back, that is a monumental moment in history for this city, and for other areas too. But man, like, yeah, that the picture you're showing there, that is from inside a high school, very famous high school in New Orleans called Holy Cross. Very historic place. The building has been there for a very long time, and just completely destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. And while exploring inside there, we found that newspaper, which is, I think, dated the day before or 2 days before the hurricane actually hit.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, did you send me a picture of that high school, or?
I may have.
Oh,
I may have
that's
sent you a picture of it.
1 second.
That's it right there. That's it.
Okay.
Yep, that's the outside of it. So, yeah, that place. The water, I believe, went all the way up past the first floor of that building. And
Really?
yeah. And I mean, the whole first floor is just completely just trashed. And the second, third floors are in bad shape. And it's super dangerous in there because, since the first floor was so destroyed, everything above it, as you walk on certain parts of the floor upstairs in the second floor and especially the third floor, you feel like it could crumble at any time. And there are parts that have crumbled. Um, in fact, while we were there, one of our guys in our team, we have a team, an exploration team called Crew Do Exploration. Shout out to my guys and girls. We were in the school, and one of our guys stepped in a hole and almost fell through the floor. And yeah, and another team member, she grabbed his backpack. She grabbed his backpack and stopped him from falling all the way through.
Oh,
And
dang.
so it's pretty dangerous in there.
Oof.
Yeah.
You know, I was just gonna say, this building. It reminds me of the. I know I'm gonna sound crazy when I say it, but it does exist. But it's called the Japanese High School in Sweetwater, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
And what it was beforehand, it was a military school that was actually about the same size as West Point, but just the similar build that I see here in this high school just reminds me spitting image of that building.
It could be similar architects. They who knows? Who knows? The same time period, same architect or similar architects. Maybe it's the same person that designed both
Could be.
places. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you I'll show it to you. I mean, it's
Yeah, I'd
really
love to see
interesting.
it. Yeah, I definitely have to see that.
But anyway, now that you talked about Katrina a little bit, um, I remember when, of course, I was doing my series. We went across the bridge that goes across Lake Pontchartrain. I mean, dude, that was like a mind warp that it just kept on going and
Yeah,
going and go. And my
it's a
thing
long
is,
one.
it's like I remember seeing I later looked up a picture, and it's like after Katrina had happened, like you couldn't see any of it. Like, and I think Lake Pontchartrain, what is like only like 5-6 feet deep.
Yeah, there's certain parts of it that are a little deeper than that, but yeah, for the most part, it's not super deep as far as I know, because a lot of it is swamp that had the water is over, and when the water gets low, you can see a lot of the stuff that's underneath there. And in fact, there's a certain part of Lake Pontchartrain that goes past. I believe it's still off of I-10. Um, there's a city called Rudock, and it's spelled Ruddock, I believe, and it's an exit off the interstate, and there's nothing there. There's a town called Rudock, but there's nothing there, and that's because there used to be a town there um, years and years ago, and I believe it was just wiped out by hurricanes of the past and just erosion and flooding from the lake and everything. And so there's nothing left, absolutely nothing left of this place. There might be some foundations under the water somewhere, but there's nothing left. So there's this crazy exit off the interstate for Rudock for this city that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh
They left
goodness.
the exit there.
Now, but now that you mentioned that town, I mean, is this fort in a similar situation or?
So that fort, there's one of two forts that we explored, my crew and I. This is one of them. This one, I believe, is Fort McComb. I believe this one is Fort McComb. They're very close to each other. They are just outside of New Orleans, on the outskirts of Lake Pontchartrain, and they were built to protect New Orleans from an invasion from uh, basically, I guess, the Gulf of Mexico, because they're kind of situated where you can enter Lake Pontchartrain, and if you enter Lake Pontchartrain, then you can come up to New Orleans from behind. So they wanted to build these forts to protect New Orleans in that way. They wanted from a water invasion, basically. And these forts have been there for a long time. This is one of the man. I forgot. There's like three levels or three tiers of forts. One's like super old, then this one, and then there's some that followed this one, the style that they were built in or whatever. And I think this is the second tier type of forts that were built in the 1800s. Yeah, there's a lot of history with this place, and it's been closed and just sitting there empty for a long time.
I mean, so wait, this isn't like a national monument or state.
Well, yeah. So the forts are owned or protected by the state parks, or Louisiana State Parks Association, I think is what it's officially called. Um, the other fort that's just near there called Fort Pike used to actually be open to the public, and you could go in and take a tour of the fort or whatever. But it's been closed to the public for a long time now, because they just didn't have the money to keep it up and to keep it safe for people to walk around in. But I have memories from being a kid. My dad used to take me to the other fort, to tour it a few times. But yeah, it's been closed to the public, I want to say, since the 90s, maybe. So yeah, we can't tour them anymore. But they're still operated or run by the Louisiana State Parks Association. They're just not kept up because there's no money for it, unfortunately.
Oh, cool. My friend Jeff Holder just commented. 1 second. I was gonna say, Deej, whenever I do come back down to New Orleans, I want to go to this place. Whatever we have to do to get into that place, I want to see it.
So the way we were able to go, we were actually invited to go by somebody who takes care of it. He's a volunteer and he takes care of it. And I think every few months or every 6 months or whatever, him and a group of other volunteers go out to clean it up and to try to, take care of the grass and the overgrowth as much as they possibly can, just to keep it from just deteriorating into nothing. And he, by permission of the Louisiana State Park Association, was able to let us in with him, and he let us, walk around and film it. So it's possible I can talk to him and see if we can do something like that again. We'd set something up and do it. That way we can go in there legally. Because there's people that go in there, and they're not supposed to. Obviously, there's no trespassing in these places, but yeah, there's a way we can do it legally.
Awesome. Oh, looks like my friend Jeff said, I'll volunteer my time to go. It'd be so awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, heck yeah.
It is a really cool place to see because it's so old, and to know that there are people living living in there and working in there, and it's an interesting place to be in. If you believe in paranormal stuff, you kind of feel like the energy that's in there, and it's interesting. It's interesting for sure.
Well, of course, New Orleans is like number 3 in the entire United States for being one of the most haunted.
Yeah.
Like, have you had any experiences while being out here, or I guess that
No,
are
I have only had two experiences, and they both were at the Gothic jail in DeRidder. I was invited to go on a ghost hunt basically, at that jail, which is a really cool place, by the way. If you ever get a chance to go, go. It's awesome, and they do tours and stuff. But we were invited to go, me and a group of people, to go and do a paranormal investigation of this place. And I'm a skeptic, but I have some beliefs in that kind of stuff, and I'm very fascinated by it for sure. But I've never had an experience or anything like that until I went to this place. And while there, my two experiences were, there was only about 5 or 6 of us total in this whole building, and it's a 3-floor building. Um, all the people that I was with were all on the first floor, and I believe I was on the second floor for this first experience by myself. And while up there in one of the holding cells or whatever, or I think it was like a general population cell or whatever, while in there they have these lights hanging, the light fixtures hanging with just light bulbs and a pull string. And the pull strings hang about, I would say, top of head level. So as you're walking through, you could pull the string and turn the light on. But as you walk through, if you walk under it just right, that string will slide across the top of your head. So I'm standing still in this room, and I feel that. I feel that like string trace across the top of my head. And I immediately look up and I'm expecting to see this light bulb with the pull string, and then it's not there. The only one in the room is like 10 feet away from me. And I'm going, okay, that was odd. So I'm walking around looking to see, like, well, what was that? What would have touched my head? So I went and got one of the guys I was with, who are much more experienced investigators than me, and told them about it. And they said, oh, well, let's go take a look. And we went in there and we tried to recreate what happened as best as we could and figure out any kind of possible way that might have happened. Like maybe it was a burst of air that came through a crack, or maybe something fell, or dust or something. We couldn't find any explanation for why that happened. So what's left is, well, maybe it was something paranormal. So that was my first experience. And then while I was up on the third floor, which on the third floor, I believe, was the solitary confinement cells. While I was there, I was filming myself in one of the cells. And again, I was by myself on this floor. All the rest of the people were down on the first floor. So there was nobody up there with me. And while I'm in this cell filming myself, I say my little thing to the camera, and I walk out, and I have 2 cameras. I have my main camera, and I have a GoPro that I'm recording on both. So I stop one to review the footage, but the other one is still recording. And so while I'm reviewing the footage, I hear this loud clank, like metal on metal, clink, and it echoed in the room. So my first thought was, oh, somebody came up here, and I'm like, hello? No answer. Hello? No answer. So now I'm like shining my flashlight all around. Like, what was that? So I'm looking and I'm looking around, and it's not a very big room. So it's, there's 2, it's like a big room and 2 solitary confinement cells within this room. And so I go around to the other side. I'm looking all over the place. I'm like, what the heck? What was that noise? So again, I got them to come upstairs, and they took a look, and we tried to figure it out. Maybe it was a door that, banged shut or something. But the cell doors were so heavy, they don't move on their own. Like you could barely move them with your arm. So it wasn't that. And there was nothing else that we could find that would have been a way for metal to hit metal. But in the footage, you can hear the clank. Like you hear the clank in my footage. Yeah, that was my favorite one. That was pretty cool. But other than those 2 moments, that's the only real paranormal experiences I've had personally. I know people that have had plenty more than that, but for me, those are the only 2. Well, and it was outside of New Orleans, of all places. So
talk about the odds.
Right.
I was gonna say, have you been to the Bloody Mary's Voodoo Museum? I
I
mean,
have not, but I saw that you went, and I've been wanting to go there, man. That's a crazy, crazy story about that guy and his girlfriend. That is just wild. It's yeah, I want to go there.
it's very fascinating. I mean, what got me interested is I saw Jacob went there, and
Mhm.
he said that he was allowed to film. So I'm like, well, I guess it's an okay place to film. But when I got there, the owner was like, "No, no, you can't film. You can take pictures though." Which,
Yeah,
from one vlogger to another, it's like, where's this logic? Where you can take pictures, but you can't film.
right.
Like when I went to New Orleans, that's the first time I ever ran into that. Like, have
Yeah,
you ever
she's
like do what?
no, I was gonna say from what I hear, she's very protective of the place now, because I think a lot of people have filmed it and put it online. She wants people to physically go there, so I can kind of understand it on that level. But you know, like you said, from one blogger to another, we don't when we showcase these places, we don't ever show the entire thing. We show pieces of it. And
Yep.
when I explain to people, like, or when I'm asking somebody, hey, do you mind if I film this? And they're hesitant about it, I'll say, well, look, I understand that this is your business and you want people to physically come here, but just know that, like, what I'm going to film, I'm just going to film highlights of things. I'm not going to film the entire walk through from beginning to end because, well, then why would anybody have the need to go? So my idea is film highlights of it, showcase it, and say, you have to come here and see it for yourself. That kind of thing. So I usually try to use that when I speak to people and ask them about filming places. And I think she's just super protective now of her place. She just wants people to physically go there.
Well, that's I totally understand that part. That's why I kind of backed off. I took pictures, more or less the highlights kind of
Yeah.
thing. I know you sent me a few more pictures. Um, what is this one in particular?
So this is the Lindy Boggs Medical Center. It is one of two hospitals that made the news for after Hurricane Katrina. Um, the second of these two hospitals was called Mercy, and Apple TV just put out a short series about that hospital. Um, for Katrina, they lost power, and a lot of people died because of it. The similar thing happened in this hospital. New Orleans is very well known to be under the uh, water level or whatever, and so New Orleans floods very easily. And you dig in the ground, it's going to get wet because the ground is saturated. So that's why our cemeteries are built in tombs above the ground, because if you bury somebody in the ground, they're going to end up floating up anyway. So when this hospital was built, they put the generators for the hospital in the basement, which why would you ever do that? I think same thing for that other hospital too. The generators were in the basement. So when Katrina hit and the area flooded, well, guess what happened? It flooded the basement first and knocked the generators out. So there's no power going to this hospital to begin with, and now their generators are gone. So they have zero power. They have all these patients in there. So and there's no way for them to get in or out because the place is it's flooded around them. So a lot of people died in this hospital as well as the other hospital. But what was really cool about this hospital is we were able to get into the basement, which had been flooded up until like about a month before we went in there, and it was still flooded from Hurricane Katrina. So it had been flooded for like 15 or 16 years.
Really?
Yeah, up until the point that we actually went in, and then we went down into the basement, and it's disgusting. Like, it was really terrible down there, but we got to walk around and see like this whole like area that had been underwater for so long, including the morgue for the hospital. We found the morgue with the little metal doors that you put the bodies
Bodies
in and
in.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, it's wild, man. This is one of my favorite places that we've been to. Love that place.
Hmm. Well, when I make my second trip again, put this on the list
This would be
because
a
I
cool
like it.
place. Yeah. The only thing is now they have been stripping it out, so there's not a lot of stuff left inside to see. But it's still interesting. I don't know the status of the basement though. I don't know if they've taken anything out of there or not. But either way, it's still a cool place to go in. And yeah, if you come in town, we'll see if we can maybe try to get in there.
Well, I mean, again, I mean, it's like when I went when I went down there. I mean, there were just so many places I wanted to see, but I just couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Um, let me ask you this: have you ever heard of the Myrtles Plantation? Well,
Oh,
not Myrtles
absolutely.
Plantation, Magnolia Lane Plantation.
Yeah, Magnolia Flint. Yeah, I've heard of that.
You know, I mean, it was featured on that old show, Scariest Places on Earth.
Hmm.
Like, I saw that was, I'm guessing, a greenhouse or an arboretum, but it was temporarily closed. Do you know anything if they let people go in or?
I don't know much about it. I'd have to look into it and see. But yeah, we can look into that and see, figure it out. And there's always a way in.
Mhm.
There's always a way into some of these places. So we can see what we can figure out.
Mm. All right. Now there's a few other pictures. Well, actually, because it's a creepy doll, we'll talk about this.
This was this was in an old. It was a home for boys. It was called the LaFawn Home for Boys, and I believe is owned by the Archdiocese of New Orleans. I think.
Yeah.
The building has since been torn down, but basically what it was on one level it was like dorm rooms for young boys, and on this first level were like classrooms and I believe a chapel and a few other things. Um, Not a very big building, but again, Hurricane Katrina is what wiped it out essentially, and that's why it wasn't in use anymore when we went. Uh, but a lot of stuff is just left in there, including we're walking around, and all of a sudden here's this just creepy doll laying on the ground. We walked into some of the classrooms, and there's kids' names still up on the wall, and where they would hang their bags when they be in school. It's strange to be in those places and see that kind of stuff. But this one, the creepy doll, that was awesome.
No, no thanks. No thanks. Well, let me see. I saw some of these, like this, for example. That is a beautiful work of art.
Yeah.
So who did that exactly?
I don't know. I'm not sure who the artist behind that is. This is a very well known piece to explorers and graffiti artists because it's in this place called the Market Street Power Plant, which is one of the most desired places to explore as an urban explorer in New Orleans. And there's a lot of really beautiful graffiti in this place. This one being probably my favorite. And it's huge. I don't know if you can see the scale of it, but if you look behind there, there's those windows. Those windows are probably about 6 or 7 feet tall windows, so you can see how big this is in comparison to that. It's pretty massive. So I don't know how they drew it on there because just below where that is water. So how they accomplished painting that is a mystery to me, but it is very cool.
I mean, because I was gonna say, I mean, that's what I was wondering. What kind of scaffold or what kind of contraption did they have to get
Yeah,
to do that? I mean,
yeah,
that is impressive.
yeah.
Um,
It's pretty neat.
well, since I guess while we're looking through pictures, I know you've collaborated with. Well, we'll hold off because on that real quick. Um, I guess what is it like to collaborate with some of these more well-known vloggers. I know you did one with Jacob the Carpetbagger at the Abita Stream. Dang it, the Abita Mystery House. I
Yeah.
mean, like, what's it like to work with some of these guys?
Well, what's cool about that is, like I said earlier, Jacob and Adam especially are, they were the inspiration behind me starting my channel to begin with. But over the years, you get to as you're watching their videos and commenting on their stuff, and you kind of get to know them a little bit that way. And especially they've got social media, so you follow them there, and you just kind of strike up conversations. And with Jacob especially, I remember he was doing like a live stream or something, and I think I had mentioned like, hey man, if you come to New Orleans, go back to the Abita Mystery House. And he's like, yeah, I love that place. It's my favorite place. I said, yeah, it's mine too. And he hit me up one of these days and he's like, hey, I'm coming to town. Let's hit the Abita Mystery House. I said, all right. So I got to meet him in person that way. And, we became friends after that, and a good dude. And he came back to New Orleans for Mardi Gras about a year or so later, and hung out with him for that. And it's just really cool. Jacob's a good dude. That guy travels everywhere.
Yep.
That's a lot of travel. Like, I like traveling, but I don't know, man. That's a lot of driving, and I don't know how he does it. I really don't.
Yep. I mean, like I said, when I want to go to some of these places, I think, Jacob would drive back, the same distance and he would not care.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, like right now, there's okay, get this. It's in North Georgia, but it was a Mississippian period burial mound. But in this burial mound, it is this big giant like bird made from stones. Like I'll send you the link to it. I forgot what
Yeah,
it
I'd
was.
like to see that.
It was absurd. Let me try to find it. Um, 1 second, and I'll be able to tell you. Anyway, I found it in this book called Weird Georgia. Dude, it's like you wouldn't think that the state of Georgia like has like so many weird things. Like, it's like when people think Georgia, they think, oh, Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing that's in Georgia is Atlanta. But anyway, pardon me. It's called the Enormous Eagle of Eatonton. And
Oh, cool.
I'm not sure if 1 second. Let me pull up mine a little bit more. I know this is kind of weird. That's a picture of it.
Oh wow.
But anyway, that's on top of a mountain. Like,
Wow. That's awesome looking.
it reminds me straight up of like the Nazca lines, out in Peru. But anyway, that's I'm seriously thinking about driving 4 hours just to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be worth a drive right there.
Yep. But since we're at the top of the hour, let me pull back what we came here for. You want to talk about this gym?
So
It's
that is one of the shuttered rides at the famous Six Flags New Orleans, also known as Jazzland. That was one of my bucket list items or places to explore, and we finally got to go, and it was amazing. Like, that place was absolutely amazing. Walking around in this theme park, that's the only abandoned theme park I've ever done. Walking around in there was just weird and cool and exciting. And one of my friends, live a little exploration, she said to me, she said, while I'm in here, I can like hear and feel the sounds of like kids screaming, on rides and everything. Like, she's like, I feel it. It's all around me. That's all I hear right now. So it was an impressive place to explore. It was really awesome.
I mean, is it really as like, what's the word? Not tight niche, but because I mean, I've heard people like horror story after horror story of people getting caught for trespassing. Is it really that bad?
It is.
Or,
It's the security there is very, very top notch. Like they're 24-hour security. And there's several people that go around the premises by foot and by vehicle. Uh, it is very monitored very well. And if you get caught in there, they're not kind. I've known some people that have been caught in there, and the security guys are not, they're not putting up with it. Like, in fact, I'm trying to remember who it was, but a couple of guys went in there. It might have been the proper people. I don't remember who it was, but they were in there, and while in there, security pulled up on them and pulled a gun on them.
oh crap.
Yeah, pulled a gun on him and said, "Y'all need to get out. Stop filming and get out." And he walked them out of the park. So yeah, it's not a place that's easy to get into and walk around. Um, we just happened to be lucky on the day that we went.
I mean, because I was gonna say, I mean, y'all got like magnificent shots like this.
I
That's
appreciate it. Yeah,
gorgeous.
I love that ride. That ride right there is so cool to me. The only thing I wish it had were still had the seats hanging from it. Just over time, like I don't know if people are just taking some of this stuff or they're just deteriorating, but if you look at some older pictures of that ride in particular, you can see the seats still hanging from all the chains. Pretty neat.
um, 1 second, we'll pull up another photo because you sent. Oh, this one. This one.
Yeah, that's the Mega Zeph, and it was named that because it used to be a theme or an amusement park in New Orleans called Pontchartrain Beach, and the roller coaster they had there was called the Zephyr, and everybody local that grew up in a time period to be able to go to Pontchartrain Beach knew of the Zephyr. So when they built Jazzland before it was Six Flags, this roller coaster was named after that in honor of that ride. So they called it the Mega Zephyr, or Mega Zeph for short. And the name stuck with it when Six Flags took over, thankfully. But yeah, that's the Mega Zeph, and just a cool looking roller coaster, man. Like I never got to ride it. I never went to Six Flags or Jazzland when it was open, so I never got to ride it. But it's cool to see that. I love seeing it.
Mm. I mean, I agree. Just saying that, just rising up out of the off the side of the road,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
If you look in the background, you can just see some little buildings right there on the skyline. That's New Orleans. So this is just outside of New Orleans and New Orleans East, right off the interstate. And if you look closely as you're driving to or from New Orleans, from like the Slidell area or from Mississippi, you're coming that way, you'll see it. You'll see. You look to the left or you look to the right, and you'll see Six Flags poking up out of the top of the trees.
that that is so neat. Um, Actually, speaking of this, I saw you make a video on it. Like, I think it was back in April or May, but it was a ghost town in Mississippi. Like,
Oh yeah, Rodney,
like,
Mississippi.
oh my
Yep.
God! Like I said, just what was it like going that? Just seeing like the church and like just all these buildings that are still standing.
Yeah, that was cool. That was another bucket list place. And we, again, it was one of those instances where we were invited to come, um, because people, you can go visit the town, but you can just kind of walk around. You can't go inside of any of these places. Or they don't like people going inside in these places because they are so old. They don't have a lot of money to upkeep this stuff. It's mainly volunteers and like whatever donations they get to help preserve this stuff, because it's all very old. But we were invited to come out there, and they let us go inside one of the two churches that's there. And that was really cool walking inside this church. Because it's just, man, it's just, the history behind it is incredible. If you look on the outside of this church, and I'm pretty sure I filmed it, there's a cannonball stuck into the side of the front of the
Oh
building,
yeah,
and that's from the Civil War. Like that place is that cannonball's from the Civil War. It's just crazy to see that.
that is nuts. Did you happen to send me a picture? I mean, I didn't quite look through. One second. I don't think you sent me a picture of it.
Of
Um,
Rodney, Mississippi. I might not have. I just grabbed like a few random stuff to send to you.
I was gonna say you sent me this, and I for like 1 second I was like, how long did it take them to do that?
So this place in particular, okay, the story behind this is the name for it. It goes by several names, but it's mostly known as De Gaulle Manor because it's off of a street called General De Gaulle, and it was an apartment complex um, that over time had shut down because it wasn't being taken care of. The people that were living there, the owners or whatever, were not fixing stuff when it broke, and it was just it deteriorated and deteriorated. And unfortunately, the people that were living there were living in just horrible conditions. And finally, it was just completely closed for good, and just sat there empty for a long time. And it's been used for like you know gang territories and drugs and stuff, and it's not a very good place. But a local artist named Mike B went, and him and some of his people went and got permission to and painted a lot of this stuff on the outside of these two buildings in particular, and in some of the apartments themselves, and were able to open it to the public for I think a month back in, I want to say 2014 is when that happened. And they called it Exhibit B because he goes by Mike B. And it was called Exhibit B, and you can walk around and see all the artwork, and it was all this beautiful graffiti work, just gorgeous stuff. And after that month, they closed it off to the public, and it's just been sitting there ever since, just like this. And I mean, other people go and add to it, but yeah, like there were several people that were behind painting all the like this cool stuff on the outside like that. Like,
So I was just gonna say that must have taken a really long time.
I want to say, if I remember correctly, I want to say it took them a good couple months for them to paint all this stuff and get it all out. Because I think they also cleaned out a lot of stuff too to make it safe for people to walk around. And because there's now I don't know if they were there or not before, but there's some of these walkways, the railings are missing. And if you look to the side of the right side of the picture, you can see the walkway that I'm standing on. There's no railings, so all the railings have been broken off or removed or whatever. So hey, walking around there is not the safest thing to do. And we went when
Well,
it was raining, so the ground was a little slippery too, so that didn't help.
well, dang. Well, actually, speaking of unsafe places, actually, I have this one interesting story that I feel like I need to tell.
Yeah.
Not my smartest moment, but it's of course when my friends and I, we had taken a road trip down to New Orleans, and we were really trying to find the locals' version of Bourbon Street.
Mhm.
Apparently it was way more quiet, a lot more chill, a lot more relaxed.
You talking about Frenchman Street?
That,
Yep.
yep. Anyway, we're walking down there, and I mean, it's like the more we get out of the way, it's like the more the lights are busted and cars are broken into, and there was like I think it was like this vampire bar or goth bar or whatever. Anyway, it was a cute goth chick. That's all I know. Um, But anyway, I thought it would be funny. I pulled out $20 and I said, "Hey, I got $20. $20 to the person who can whoop my ass,
What?
take my money." And what had happened is I was doing it on purpose because my friend Bruce and Zach, they were freaking out. And I mean, it's like in those areas, just as long as you don't do anything stupid, they don't care.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, Bruce, look, I got money. And Bruce was like, Chet, shut up. Because right as I said that, we passed two cars that had windows that were busted.
Nice. Nice.
I've done some dumb shit. Well, I've done, well, I don't want to like I don't want to make the algorithm mad. I've done some stupid stuff too. So anyway,
Yeah.
trust me. I mean, New Orleans was like probably one of the funnest experiences I ever had.
Well, I'll tell you, as a visitor to New Orleans, it's very easy to do stupid things. Very easy.
uh, and I'll tell you another thing about New Orleans. Like when, like I'll tell you, like on every street corner, like especially where, oh crap, um, it's where Andrew Jackson's statue is.
Oh,
It's
Jackson Square.
Jackson Square.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there are street performers, there are artists, and if you are not careful, they will get you out of your money.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, here's the thing: it's like if you tell them no, some of them they're like they won't take no for an answer. They'll keep haggling you
yeah,
until you give them some money.
yeah. One
Um,
of the most famous little lines like that is you walk around and somebody will come up to you and say, "I bet you know where you got your shoes at." He's like, you give me $5, I'll tell you where you got your shoes at. I'm like, all right, here's $5. You got them on your feet. They're right there.
ooh.
That is a very common thing here. Yeah, those guys, I get that a lot of people do not like to run into that kind of stuff, but I mean, they're trying to make money, and if I have a little extra cash, and they'll come up to me, with these little lines like that. And I'm like, no, don't worry about it, man. You don't need to run your game on me here. Here's $5-10, whatever. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. And they go off and hit up some other person.
Oh goodness. Well, I guess we'll take a few. What's this right here? Is that
So
an
that is the Times Picayune newspaper plant outside of it I was telling you about earlier, and that's the clock tower that you used to be able to see from the interstate. So they
hmm?
made that's where they made the newspapers at for New Orleans for a long time, and they tore it down, and they were supposed to build kind of like a Top Golf ripoff type place. I forgot what it was going to be called, but they started building it, and there's just the shell of it there, and then COVID hit, I think, and it's just been sitting ever since. I think they ran out of money, or they decided not to finish it, or whatever. So they tore this beautiful building down, this beautiful old building down for no reason, to build this thing that I guess they're not going to finish building. So now there's just this terrible looking piece of metal building just kind of half done, just sitting there for a couple of years now. It's a shame.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are you looking to come to this side of the country anytime soon?
I would love to, man. I would absolutely love to. Finding time to do traveling is, that's always my Achilles heel, so to speak. But yeah, like if I can find the time to do it, I definitely want to come out that way. Absolutely.
I mean, because I believe. Well, I mean, well, he knows you or Andy Fowler with Andy's Journeys.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I know he's up in this area too. He's a good friend of mine.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, North Georgia, Southeast Tennessee. I mean, there's a crap ton of stuff here. I mean, like if you ever come to this side of the country, like I did a video on it. I'm pretty sure you've seen it, but they were two dinky line locomotives that were
Yeah.
sitting out in this barn. I mean, it's like the story behind those is just bizarre. And in that region, they are about the only, like, there's three of them in total. One of them is on display, and these, they're just sitting out in a barn, like, period.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, yeah, man, just come on to this side of the country. I mean, but
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah.
I
When I'm
mean,
able to, maybe sometime next year, I'm gonna hit you up, man. I
I
want you to take
mean,
me to some places. I'd like to see those trains. That would be cool.
I mean, like, and too, on that, um, well, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen the video, but out in Scott County, or those derailed coal cars. I mean, I've had people ask me left and right, where they're at, but I'm getting reluctant now because it's like they're in such a remote area that you have to drive out and out. And once you get, I mean, I imagine there's probably certain low areas in New Orleans where, or at least Louisiana, it's like once you get past a certain point, the police are no longer the police. The people living in that town are the police.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And but anyway, yeah, I mean, one second. And I think there was, let me find it. Oh yeah, this. I'm is that from Six Flags too?
That's from Six Flags. Yeah. Yep. That's
Oh
one of
my,
the rides. In fact, what's weird about that is the ride that car belongs to is like almost on the other side of the park. so, so somebody at some point carried it, to where it's sitting now, or pushed it, or who knows. It's funny that if you go through and look at older pictures of Six Flags, as abandoned Six Flags up until now, there's a lot of these little uh, landmarks like that have shifted around and moved over time. There's this weird, like, big red, I don't even know what it is. Like, it's like a red, like, metal cage looking thing. And it's almost in a different spot every time somebody posts new pictures of that place.
oh my,
Yeah, it's
um,
funny.
oh, New Orleans is so.
Yeah.
Actually, um, speaking of that, well, one of the things that I always wanted to do as a kid, and I finally got to do it, but I got to stay at the Myrtles plantation for a night.
Yeah, that place.
But
That's awesome.
I mean, some of the things that I did not realize, it's like my two buddies that were with me at the time. I didn't tell them that we were spending, like, that was going to be my joke. It's like I'm going to take them to a haunted plantation, one of the most haunted plantations in the entire southeast, and they won't figure it out till we get there. I mean, that was another story in itself. Because here's the thing. I mean, I know you're more of a skeptic, but I was asleep in my bed, fully asleep. Apparently, my friends, which are sitting in or sleeping in the bed next to me, they felt something like sitting with them on the bed, like
Oh,
almost like
wow.
a child jumping up and down. Um,
Wow.
and the weird thing is, my best friend, well, one was having a dream that children were playing with them on the bed. The other friend of mine, he felt like something was with them, like, and it's just like, talk about the odds. It's like the one
Wow.
guy who, it's like, that is the ultimate prank.
That's awesome. The Myrtles plantation that's one of the places I have not been to yet. That's
oh
like,
my,
again, top of the list. And our group, so I've got this group, we call ourselves the Crew Do Exploration, and it's Crew, Krewe, kind of based on like Mardi Gras stuff or whatever. we've been talking about, we all as a group want to go and spend the night at the Myrtles. And like, because when you spend the night there, you're allowed to roam around the whole place all night long. We want to do that. We want to just go and all night just walk around filming stuff and seeing what happens to us and have some experiences, hopefully.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, the restaurant that they have there on site. Oh my God! Oh, that's the one thing that I loved about New Orleans and like that area. You all have some of the best damn food on the planet. Like,
I'll have to agree. Yeah, we have good food here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, up here, I mean, it's like the only thing we got is like fried chicken, or yeah. I mean, it's just like. I mean, crystals originated here. That's one thing.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man, I
Uh,
haven't had a crystal burger in a while.
it's a gut bomb. I
But it's good. It's so good.
think I know we're kind of nearing down the. I guess it's just one personal question.
Mhm.
Since it is New Orleans, like some of these abandoned buildings that you've gone in, have you ever stumbled upon like any type of I won't say an altar because I know voodoo is not inherently evil. You know, it's just what things have been brought up over the course of the last 90 years or so. But have y'all ever come across like like altars or anything like that? Or
We have actually, but not like what you think. so, so in one place, excuse me, in one place, um, you ever heard of Twisted Tea?
yes,
So, for whatever reason, though we see Twisted Tea cans littered in almost every abandoned place that we go into. There will be a Twisted Tea can, at least two or three of them in these places. Everywhere we go, everywhere. But this one place that we went to, it was an old nursing home, and somebody had built a shrine out of Twisted Tea cans, and there must have been like 200 cans that it was just this like mountain of cans that were all like, some were strung up with strings, and it like came up to a point, and I'm going, what is this? What is this weird Twisted Tea shrine? This was bizarre to see that. And then we found, I guess it was you could say it was an altar. It was inside of a chapel, but somebody had taken a fire extinguisher that had rusted out on the inside and put all these like little trinkets around it. And there was a jar, like a pickle jar with liquid in it and something inside. We don't know what it was. We think it was some kind of organic substance, dead animal or something. I was kind of sitting there, and like all these little burnt candles and everything that were around it. So somebody was praying to something at this fire extinguisher altar. Really weird. That's the only ones that we've seen so far.
uh,
Yeah. And you'll see a lot of like graffiti that, say like 666, and you'll see pentagrams everywhere. And that's just people being, silly with that stuff. But usually you'll come across that in just about every building too. At least a 666 and a pentagram in
yep,
almost every place that we go.
because it's edgy,
Yeah, yeah.
edgy.
You see a
You're
lot
right.
of um male genitalia drawn on walls too. That's a very common thing to see. It's weird. People
Like,
also
wow, look
like
at
to,
this art.
yeah, people also like to write the word poop a lot. I don't know. I don't know the thought process behind that, but yeah, it's funny that, going into places as much as we have now at this point, the stuff the stuff that you commonly see in these places is really funny.
Yep. Ugh, sorry, my
No, it's all right,
well,
man.
but anyway, we're nearing down the hour. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this out. 1 second. Deej. Anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. I know I did. Remember, always stay posted, stay tuned. I hope next week to get another well known vlogger out into fascinating people and extraordinary stories with the rise of the vloggers. Join me, shall you? Anyway, sorry, all time greatest quote ever. But anyway, love you all very much. Podcast over.